The Galactic Zarn Empire ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Their warships brought fear across 17 galaxies. Their technology was beyond compare. No species dared to challenge them, none except humans. Admiral Kira Zil Torvin stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Glory. Her 6 eyes blinked as she studied the strange vessel that appeared at the edge of their territory. The ship was unlike anything in Zarn records. It was sleek, beautiful, deadly. Its hull shimmered, with an unknown metal that seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. What species made that ship? She demanded, her voice sharp with authority. Lieutenant Mira Zil. Vexen studied her console with growing concern. The readings suggest it is human. Admiral, impossible. Kira hissed, her scaled hands gripping the command rail. Humans are primitives. They barely left their home system 2 centuries ago. Their technology is generations behind ours. The scans are clear, Admiral. Mira insisted. The ship is of human origin. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database. It appears they have advanced far beyond our estimates. Kira felt a cold sensation run down her spine. Humans were supposed to be easy prey. The Empire had already taken one of their colony worlds for its resources. The attack had been simple routine. The humans had no defense against Zarn weaponry. If they had advanced this quickly, magnify the image, she ordered. The holographic display zoomed in on the human vessel. It was small compared to the massive Zarn dreadnought, but somehow it felt more dangerous, more purposeful. Its design was elegant, with flowing lines that suggested both speed and power. No visible weapons could be seen yet. Kira sensed the ship was far from defenseless. Hail them, she ordered. Let us see what these humans want in our territory. The communications officer tapped at her console. Imperial hail sent, Admiral. No response. Send again, Kira commanded. Make it clear that they have entered restricted space. The officer tried once more. Human vessel. This is the Imperial Zarn Dreadnought, Eternal Glory. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself, or be destroyed. For several minutes there was no response. Then a voice came through, clear, strong, female. This is Captain Laura Miller of the Earth Alliance ship Defiant. We are aware of your territorial claims, Admiral Torvin. We simply do not recognize them. Kira froze. How did the human know her name? The ship must have scanned their vessel. That level of penetration through Zarn shields should be impossible. Captain Miller. Your vessel is trespassing in Zarn space. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. A soft laugh came through the communication channel. I think not, Admiral. Look outside your viewport. Kira turned her gaze to the massive reinforced window that dominated the bridge. She gasped. What had been one human ship was now surrounded by a shimmer in space, a distortion. Then as she watched, 5 more identical vessels appeared from nowhere. Impossible, whispered Lieutenant Mira. Our sensors would have detected their approach. Scan again, ordered Kira, her voice tight with growing fear. The science officer worked frantically. At her station, Admiral, they appear to have some form of cloaking technology. Our sensors did not detect them until they decloaked. This was worse than Kira had imagined. Humans with advanced ships was concerning humans with technology that could hide from Zarn sensors was terrifying. The implications were clear. These humans could have ships anywhere in Zarn space, and the Empire would never know until it was too late. Captain Miller. Kira addressed the human, keeping her voice steady. Your presence here is an act of aggression. The Zarn Empire does not tolerate threats. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Your 6 ships cannot hope to stand against our might. There was a pause. Then Captain Miller responded, her voice calm, confident. Admiral Torvin. The Zarn Empire has enslaved 12 sentient species. Your forces have bombarded civilian populations on 43 worlds. Your reign of terror ends today. Kira felt rage build within her. How dare this human judge the Empire? The lesser species existed to serve the Zarn. That was the natural order. You are outnumbered, human, she snarled. Your 6 ships against our dreadnought. The odds favor us. Do they? Asked Miller. Perhaps you should check your weapons systems. Cold feelings spread through Kira. She turned to her weapons officer. The young Zarn was frantically tapping at her console. Her scales had paled to a sickly gray. Admiral, the officer whispered, all weapons are offline. Something is overriding our systems. Impossible, hissed Kira. Our systems are isolated, they cannot be hacked, but the evidence was clear on every display around the bridge. Systems were failing one by one. Weapons engines, shields. All the mighty technology of the Zarn was being neutralized without the humans firing a single shot. How are they doing this? Kira demanded of her officers. None had an answer. The human captain spoke again. 3 years ago, your forces attacked a small human colony world. You believed you left. No survivors. You were wrong. One girl lived. Her name was Susan Wright. She was 12 years old. She watched your soldiers kill her family. She survived in the ruins for months before a rescue team found her. Kira remembered that world. A primitive outpost. The humans had resources the Empire needed. The attack had been standard procedure. Why was this human telling her this story? That girl grew up, continued Miller. She became the most brilliant mind humanity has ever known. She studied your technology, your weaknesses. She designed these ships and created the virus currently spreading through your systems. Kira felt her blood run cold, a single human survivor. A child had done this, had created technology that could bring a Zarn dreadnought. To its knees it seemed impossible, yet the evidence surrounded her as more systems failed across the ship. What do you want? Asked Kira, her voice a growl. Justice, replied Miller. The Earth Alliance has evidence of your war crimes. We are here to ensure they stop permanently. The human ships began to move surrounding the dreadnought. Their hulls glowed with energy. Kira realized with growing dread that she had severely underestimated these humans. They were not primitives. They were not helpless. They had somehow leapt centuries ahead in technology, and they had come seeking vengeance. Lieutenant Mira moved close to Kira, speaking softly. Admiral, our engines are failing. Our weapons are offline. We have no choice but to hear their demands. Kira looked at her crew. Some seemed afraid, others seemed almost relieved. The Empire had not been kind to its own people either, demanding absolute loyalty, punishing failure with death. The burden of serving the Empire was heavy. As Kira considered her options, the human ships drew closer, their mysterious technology humming with power. A new age was dawning in the galaxy, and Kira realized with bitter clarity that the 10,000-year reign of the Zarn Empire might be coming to an end at the hands of a species they had gravely underestimated. 3 years earlier on the colony world of Wright 4, a 12-year-old girl huddled beneath the ruins of what had once been her home. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of burned flesh. She could hear them still, the heavy footsteps of the alien soldiers, their strange hissing language, their weapons firing as they hunted for survivors. Susan Wright had watched them kill her parents, her older brother, her friends. The aliens had come without warning, their ships descending from the sky, like angry gods, their weapons turning the small colony into ash and rubble. They took what they wanted from the settlement, minerals, equipment. Then they killed everyone they found. At least they thought they had. Susan remained motionless as an alien. Patrol passed nearby, their scaled bodies covered in armor that gleamed in the light of the burning buildings, their 6 eyes scanning the ruins. She held her breath until they moved on. Then she continued her desperate work. Before the attack, her mother, Dr. Eleanor Wright, had been the colony chief scientist. She had been developing new communication technology. When the aliens attacked, she had pushed Susan into a hidden compartment beneath her lab, along with something else. A data drive containing all her research. Take this, her mother had whispered, pressing the small device into Susan's hand. If anything happens to us, make sure this reaches Earth. Those were her final words. The aliens had found her moments later. Susan had watched through a crack in the floor as they executed her mother. Then they had taken equipment from the lab, including a strange device one of the aliens had been carrying. They seemed interested in it, studying it, comparing it to the colony's technology, for weeks. After the attack, Susan survived in the ruins. She scavenged food, water, medicine. She hid from alien patrols. She studied the data drive connecting it to a damaged tablet. When the aliens finally left, she emerged from hiding. She needed to find a way to contact Earth to warn them about the aliens, to deliver her mother's final work. It took 2 months before a rescue ship arrived. Susan was the only survivor they found. She was taken to Earth, weak, malnourished, traumatized but alive and carrying something precious: knowledge. The data drive contained more than her mother's research. During the attack, the hidden sensors in the lab had recorded everything, including detailed scans of the alien technology, the strange device they had brought with them, the weapons they used, the communications equipment. When Susan showed this to Earth authorities, it caused a sensation. At the hospital where Susan recovered, a woman in a military uniform visited her. She introduced herself as Captain Laura Miller. "Susan, what you brought back is incredibly valuable," she said gently. "Those aliens, the Zarn, they are centuries ahead of us technologically. But thanks to your mother's sensors, we have our first real look at how their technology works." Susan looked at the captain with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. "They killed everyone," she said. "They didn't even talk to us, they just killed everyone." Captain Miller nodded grimly. "We believe the Zarn see other species as resources, not as equals. They have an empire spanning multiple galaxies. They take what they want and destroy anyone who might become a threat." "Will they come back?" Susan asked. "Will they attack Earth?" "Not soon," Laura assured her. "Earth is much better defended than right. But eventually, yes, they will come. We need to be ready." Susan was silent for a moment, then she spoke with a determination that surprised the captain. "I want to help. I want to study the alien technology. I want to understand it." Laura looked at the girl with newfound respect. "That would be valuable, Susan, but you're young, you need time to heal." "No," Susan said firmly. "I need to work. The Zarn killed my family. I watched them die. I can't just sit and wait for them to kill more humans. I need to do something." Laura saw the fire in the girl's eyes. She recognized the look of someone who would not be dissuaded. "All right," she said. "When you're recovered, I'll make sure you get the chance." True to her word, Captain Miller arranged for Susan to join a special research division of the Earth Alliance. The girl proved to be more than just determined. She was brilliant. Her understanding of complex systems was intuitive. She could see patterns that others missed. As months passed, then years, Susan grew from a traumatized child into a focused young woman. Her work with the Zarn technology led to breakthroughs. The research team discovered that much of the alien tech was based on principles humans had theorized but never successfully implemented. Susan saw how to make those theories work. Then came another breakthrough. A ship arrived at Earth, a vessel of refugees fleeing Zarn oppression. They were Vexari, a species conquered by the Zarn centuries ago. They had managed to steal a small transport and escape. When they learned that humans were studying Zarn technology, they offered to help. "We have lived under Zarn rule for generations," their leader Toril explained. "We have worked with their technology, though they never allowed us to truly understand it." Susan worked closely with the Vexari. Their knowledge combined with her insights accelerated progress exponentially. More refugee ships arrived, beings from other conquered worlds, each bringing pieces of the puzzle. The Zarn had kept their subject species isolated from each other, but now on Earth they worked together. By the time Susan turned 15, she was leading a team of human and alien scientists. The project had expanded beyond simply understanding Zarn technology. They were creating something new, something better. "The Zarn never innovate," explained Kalar, a refugee scientist. "They conquered their way to technological superiority centuries ago. Now they simply maintain what their ancestors built. They don't understand why it works, only that it does." Susan saw the opportunity. Then that's their weakness. We don't need to copy their technology, we need to improve it. The first prototype ship was built in secret, a vessel that combined human ingenuity with technology from a dozen alien cultures. It was small, fast, nearly invisible to sensors. Its hull made of a new alloy that absorbed energy rather than reflecting it. Its systems controlled by quantum computers that could interface with and override Zarn technology. When Captain Miller, now Admiral Miller, first saw the ship, she was stunned. This is generations beyond anything we've built before. Susan nodded. And beyond anything the Zarn have too. They stagnated, we won't. More ships were built, a fleet hidden from Zarn sensors. A virus was developed that could infiltrate Zarn systems, shutting down weapons, engines, shields. All without firing a shot. The Earth Alliance prepared in secret. While the Zarn believed humans were still a primitive species barely worth noticing. 3 years after the attack on Rite of 4, Admiral Laura Miller stood before the Earth Alliance Council. We are ready. The fleet is prepared. The 12 liberated species have joined our cause. We can strike at the heart of the Zarn Empire. And then what? Asked Counselor Eliza Chen. If we succeed, what comes next? Susan Wright, now 21, and the chief architect of the new fleet, stepped forward. We offer peace. Unlike the Zarn, we don't seek to conquer, we seek to liberate. We will free the enslaved worlds. We will offer the Zarn themselves a choice. Join a new alliance of equals or face a war they cannot win. You believe they might choose peace? Asked another counselor. After 10,000 years of conquest. Some will, Susan said confidently. Our intelligence shows many Zarn are dissatisfied with the Empire. The ruling class keeps technology and power to themselves. Many ordinary Zarn live little better than the species they conquer. Laura nodded in agreement. We have made contact with resistance movements within the Zarn Empire. They await our signal. The council debated, but the decision was made. Operation Justice would proceed. The fleet would target key Zarn installations. Susan would accompany Admiral Miller on the flagship Defiant. Their target was the command dreadnought of Admiral Kirazil Torvin, the very commander who had ordered the attack on Wright IVAs the day of the operation arrived. Susan stood in her quarters looking at an old photograph, her family smiling outside their home on Rite of 4, her mother, her father, her brother, all gone now. She touched the image gently. I kept my promise. Mom, she whispered. I made sure your research reached Earth, and now we're going to make sure no one else suffers like we did. A chime at her door. Susan turned as Admiral Miller entered. It's time, Laura said. The fleet is ready. Susan nodded, taking a deep breath. I'm ready too. Together they walked to the bridge of the Defiant. As Susan took her, stationed at the science console, she felt a strange calm. The Zarn had believed humans were primitive, had believed they could attack a human colony with impunity. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. All ships report ready, Admiral Commander, Beth Nelson announced. Laura looked to Susan, who nodded in confirmation. Then the Admiral gave the order that would change the course of galactic history, begin Operation Justice. Across the galaxy, Operation Justice unfolded with precision. Human ships appeared simultaneously at 17 key Zarn installations. The same scene played out at each location. A small fleet of advanced vessels would decloak surrounding much larger Zarn warships. Then, without firing a shot, the human ships would deploy the virus Susan had created. Zarn systems would fail. Weapons would go offline. Engines would power down on the Zarn homeworld of Torax Prime. Emperor Vorax Zil. Drath was in a rage. How is this possible? He roared at his advisors. How have primitives disabled our fleet? No one had answers. The reports coming in from across the Empire were all the same. Human ships with impossible technology, Zarn vessels rendered helpless, though slave worlds rising up in revolt as human ships delivered weapons and technology to the oppressed species that had been kept isolated from each other for millennia, were suddenly united against their common oppressor. The humans cannot have done this alone, hissed the Emperor. They must have help. They do, Your Majesty, confirmed his intelligence officer. The refugees, The escaped slaves from a dozen worlds, they have united with the humans. Impossible, the Emperor snarled. The lesser species are incapable of such cooperation, such innovation. The evidence suggests otherwise. The officer replied cautiously. Our latest reports indicate the human fleet includes crew members from all 12 of the subjugated worlds. The technology they are using combines elements from multiple cultures, including our own. Emperor Vorax paced the throne room, his claws clicking against the polished stone floor. For 10,000 years, the Zarn Empire had ruled through force and fear. The strategy had always worked before the lesser species were kept divided, fighting amongst themselves for the Empire's favor. None had ever posed a serious threat. Now somehow these humans had changed everything. They had united the slave worlds, given them hope, shared technology and knowledge. The Emperor had never considered such a strategy. It went against everything the Zarn believed about the natural order, their right to rule. Lesser species existed to serve, not to collaborate as equals. A tremor shook the palace. The Emperor stumbled. What was that, he demanded. Human ships have entered orbit, Your Majesty. His military commander reported. They have disabled our orbital defenses. Impossible, the Emperor whispered. But the word had lost its power. The impossible was happening all around him. On the main screen, an image appeared. A human female in a military uniform, her face calm, determined. Emperor Vorax Zil Drath, this is Admiral Kelly Rodriguez of the Earth Alliance Ship Liberator. Your defense systems have been neutralized. Your fleet is disabled. The reign of the Zarn Empire is over. The Emperor hissed in defiance. You cannot defeat 10,000 years of Zarn rule, human. Even if you have disabled our ships, our armies still stand. Our people will fight to the last. The human admiral nodded. We expected as much. That is why we have not come alone. The screen split, showing images from across the Zarn homeworld. In every major city, crowds had gathered, not just humans and other alien species, but Zarn civilians as well. They carried banners demanding change, freedom, equality. Your people suffer under your rule as much as the species you enslave. The admiral continued. For centuries, the ruling class has kept technology and wealth for themselves, while ordinary Zarn struggle. The resistance movements within your empire have been waiting for this moment. Emperor Vorax stared in shock. He had always believed his people were united in their superiority, their destiny to rule. Seeing Zarn citizens standing with aliens calling for his removal shook him to his core. What do you want? He asked, his voice no longer commanding. The same terms we have offered to your military commanders. Admiral Rodriguez replied, surrender. Your rule is over. A new galactic alliance is forming, one where all species, including the Zarn, will have equal representation, equal rights, equal opportunities. And if I refuse, then we will support the revolution that has already begun on your world. The admiral said simply, the choice is yours, Emperor, peace or civil war. In that moment, Emperor Vorax Zil Drath understood that the 10,000-year rule of his dynasty was truly over. Whether by the humans or by his own people, change had come to the Zarn Empire. Across the galaxy, on the planet Vexar, the first world conquered by the Zarn centuries ago, crowds filled the streets, celebrating liberation, welcoming the human ships that landed, bringing supplies, technology, weapons, and most importantly, Hope Taral, the Vexari refugee who had first come to Earth, now returned to his homeworld. A hero, he stood before his people, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. For generations we lived under Zarn oppression, he called out. They took our resources, our labor, our dignity, but they could never take our spirit. Today we stand free again, thanks to our human allies, and to all the species who joined together in common cause. The crowd roared their approval. Humans stood among them, working alongside Vexari to distribute supplies, to set up communication systems, to train locals in defense. Similar scenes played out on 11 other worlds as news spread of the Zarn Empire's collapse. Centuries of oppression ended in days. Some Zarn commanders fought back, Their ships, their weapons, no match for the advanced technology of the human fleet. Most surrendered, seeing the futility of resistance on the Defiant. Susan Wright monitored the progress of Operation Justice. Data streamed in from across the galaxy, success after success. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. "Admiral," she called to Laura Miller. "Reports from all sectors confirm the Zarn fleet is neutralized. The slave worlds are securing their freedom. Resistance. Movements on Zarn worlds have taken control of 7 major cities." Laura nodded. "And the Emperor. He has requested terms." Susan replied, a note of disbelief in her voice. "The palace is surrounded by his own people. The royal guard has stood down." Laura allowed herself a small smile. "Then it's really happening. The end of the Zarn Empire. Not with a massive battle, but with a revolution." "The best kind of victory," Susan said. "One where we gave people the tools to free themselves." Admiral Kira Zill Torvin watched this exchange from where she stood under guard, her expression unreadable. "You planned this all along," she said finally. "Not just to defeat our military, but to turn our people against us." Laura turned to the Zarn Admiral. "We studied your empire, Admiral. We learned that the greatest oppression was not against the slave worlds, but against your own citizens. The ruling class hoarded knowledge, technology, power. The ordinary Zarn suffered almost as much as the species you conquered. And now," Kira asked, "what happens to us, to the Zarn?" Susan stepped forward. "You join the Alliance as equals. No more empire, no more slaves, no more conquest, just cooperation, mutual benefit, shared knowledge." "My people will not accept this," Kira said, but her voice lacked conviction. 10,000 years of believing we are superior, you cannot change that overnight." "Perhaps not," Laura agreed. "But when your people see the benefits of cooperation, when technology improves, when quality of life rises, when they are no longer sent to die in wars of conquest, many will embrace the new way. Some already have." On the main screen, images showed Zarn citizens working alongside humans and other species, setting up new government structures, sharing technology, trading ideas. The beginnings of a new society. "This is why you won," Kira said softly, almost to herself. "Not your ships, not your weapons. This, your ability to unite, to share, to cooperate. The Zarn never understood this. We saw other species as tools, or threats, never as potential allies. It's not too late to learn." Susan told her, "Every species in the Alliance brings unique perspectives, unique strengths. By working together, we all benefit." Kira looked at the human woman who had orchestrated the fall of an empire. "You were a child when we attacked your colony. Now you offer us peace, why not revenge? Revenge would make us like you," Susan said simply. "We want to be better." As the Defiant continued its mission, visiting liberated worlds, securing Zarn installations, Susan stood at a viewport watching the stars. She thought about her family, her home on Rita 4. The path that had brought her here, a universe was changing. A new alliance forming where once an empire had ruled. Where species that had been enemies for millennia now worked together toward common goals. It would not be easy. There would be resistance, setbacks, but the foundation was laid. "Your parents would be proud," Laura said, joining her at the viewport. Susan nodded. "I think they would be. But there's still so much to do. The Zarn built their empire over 10,000 years. We can't undo all that damage in days or even years." "No," Laura agreed. "But we've made a start, and we did it without becoming what we fought against. That's the true victory." As they spoke, a communication came in from Earth. The Alliance Council appeared on screen, their faces solemn but pleased. Admiral Miller, Susan Wright, Council Chair. Eliza Chen said, "We have received your reports. Operation Justice has succeeded beyond our expectations. The Zarn Empire has fallen. The liberated worlds are securing their freedom. Representatives from all species, including reform-minded Zarn, are gathering for the first meeting of the Galactic Alliance. We Couldn't have hoped for better news, Laura replied. There is more. The counselor continued. The Alliance has voted unanimously. We wish you both to return to Earth. The formal establishment of the Galactic Alliance will require representatives who understand the vision, who have demonstrated the principles we hope to embody. 1 year later, the Great Hall of the Galactic Alliance headquarters on Earth was filled with representatives from 24 species. Some had been enemies for millennia. Now they sat side by side, their voices blending in a harmony of languages, as translation devices conveyed meaning across biological and cultural divides. Susan Wright stood at the edge of the gathering, observing the miracle she had helped create. Zarn delegates conversed with Vexari scientists, humans shared jokes with, beings from worlds that until recently had never heard of Earth. Diplomats from a dozen formerly enslaved planets discussed trade agreements, research partnerships, cultural exchanges. Quite a sight, isn't it? Susan turned to find Admiral Laura Miller. Now Ambassador Miller approaching, she smiled. Sometimes I still can't believe it worked. It almost didn't, Laura reminded her. There were moments. Susan nodded, remembering the challenges of the past year. After the initial success of Operation Justice, there had been resistance. Hardline Zarn military commanders had refused to surrender. Some had gone rogue, attacking Alliance ships attempting to reassert Imperial control. There had been assassination attempts against reformist Zarn leaders. Cultural clashes as species with ancient grudges attempted to work together. Resource disputes between newly liberated worlds. Each crisis had threatened the fragile peace, yet they had persevered. Through diplomacy, through technology, through an unwavering commitment to the principle that cooperation was stronger than conquest. The Alliance had grown stronger with each challenge. Ambassador Torvin is looking for you, Laura said, nodding toward a Zarn female moving through the crowd Susan still found. It's strange to see former Admiral Kira Zil Torvin in diplomatic robes rather than a military uniform. The Zarn who had once commanded the fleet that destroyed Susan's home was now one of the strongest advocates for reform within Zarn society. Susan. Kira greeted her as she approached. The Science Council has approved your proposal. The joint research facility on Torax Prime will begin construction next month. That's wonderful news, Susan replied, genuinely pleased. The facility would bring together scientists from all Alliance species to share knowledge, develop new technologies, and solve problems that affected multiple worlds. Many on the council were skeptical, Kira admitted. The idea of sharing our most advanced research with former enemies, it goes against 10,000 years of Zarn thinking. Change takes time, Susan acknowledged, but the benefits will be worth it. They already are, Kira said. The medical technology your team shared has cured a disease that plagued Zarn colonies. For centuries, our engineers working with Vexari scientists have improved our agricultural yields by 40%. These are achievements the Empire could never have realized alone. Susan nodded. This was the true power of the Alliance. Not conquest, but collaboration. Not subjugation, but synthesis. The combined knowledge of 24 species was creating advancements that would have taken any one of them centuries to develop alone. Across the hall, a chime sounded. The formal session was about to begin. Susan and Kira joined Laura at the Alliance Council table. The chamber quieted as Council Chair Eliza Chen took the central podium, representatives of the Galactic Alliance. She began, her voice carrying throughout the hall. 1 year ago, today the Zarn Empire fell. A new era of cooperation began. Today we celebrate not just what we have overcome, but what we have built together. Holographic displays activated, showing images from across Alliance space. New cities rising on formerly oppressed worlds, joint scientific expeditions, ships bearing the Alliance emblem, a spiral of stars on a blue field delivering aid to regions devastated by Imperial rule. In 1 year, we have accomplished what many thought impossible, Eliza continued. 24 species working as equals, sharing knowledge, resources, culture, the wounds of millennia beginning to heal. Susan felt a surge of pride as Chair Chen detailed the Alliance's achievements, new medical treatments, food security programs, educational, exchanges, cultural preservation initiatives. Most importantly, the establishment of democratic governments on worlds that had known only imperial rule. But our work has just begun, Eliza reminded them. Beyond our borders, other empires watch, some with hope, some with fear, all with uncertainty. We must show them that the Alliance way is not just more just than conquest, but more successful, more innovative, more resilient. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from across the galaxy, united in purpose. Susan caught Laura's eye. The Admiral smiled. They had both seen the reports. Intelligence suggested that other imperial powers were watching the Alliance with growing concern. The Zarn had been considered invincible. Their fall had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The path forward will not be easy, Eliza acknowledged as the applause faded. Old hatreds do not disappear overnight. Trust must be earned and maintained. But look around you, at beings who once would have considered each other enemies, now allies, friends. This is our strength. This is our future. As the formal speeches continued, Susan found her thoughts drifting to the future. The Alliance was expanding, new species applying for membership, the principles of cooperation spreading, but challenges remained. The hardline Zarn resistance, though weakened, still launched occasional attacks. Resource disputes between member worlds required careful negotiation. Cultural differences led to misunderstandings. Yet Susan felt optimistic. The Alliance had survived its first and most difficult year. It had proven that cooperation was not just a noble ideal, but a practical reality. More effective than conquest, more innovative than isolation. After the session concluded, Susan walked with Laura and Kira through the Alliance Botanical Gardens, a living symbol of the new order. Plants from 24 worlds growing together, creating something beautiful, diverse, vibrant. The Vexari delegation has invited us to visit their homeworld next month, Laura mentioned. They want us to see how they've rebuilt since liberation. I'd like that, Susan said. It's been a year since we were there. The changes are remarkable, Kira added, not just in infrastructure, but in the people. When I visited as an Imperial Admiral, they kept their eyes down. Never spoke unless ordered. Now they stand tall. Their voices strong, their ideas flowing freely. They paused at a viewing platform overlooking Earth. The planet gleamed blue and green against the blackness of space. From this distance, it looked peaceful, untouched by the turbulent history that had brought them to this moment. Do you ever think about that day? Kira asked quietly. When we first met. When your ship surrounded my dreadnought, Susan nodded. Sometimes I think about how close we came to a different outcome if we'd chosen vengeance over justice, if you'd chosen pride over pragmatism. The Empire would have fought, Kira acknowledged. We would have lost eventually, but the cost billions of lives, worlds destroyed. Instead, we found another way, Laura said, because of one girl who survived a massacre, who chose to build rather than destroy. Susan felt a familiar warmth in her chest. Not pride exactly, but satisfaction, knowing that the pain of her past had led to something good, something that would endure. The Wright Colony Memorial Center opens next week, she said. On the anniversary of the attack, Laura placed a hand on her shoulder. Will you be okay going back? Susan nodded. I need to. It's part of the journey, not just for me, but for everyone. The memorial isn't just about remembering what was lost. It's about celebrating what we've built from the ashes. They stood in companionable silence, watching as an Alliance ship departed Earth. Its hull gleaming with the same technology Susan had helped develop its mission. Not conquest, but exploration. Not to subjugate, but to discover. Not to take, but to learn. The Emperor asked to see me yesterday, Kira said, breaking the silence. Susan and Laura both turned to her in surprise. Former Emperor Vorak Zildrath had been living under house arrest since the fall of the Empire. He had refused to participate in the new government, had rejected all attempts at reconciliation. What did he want? Laura asked to understand. Kira replied, he still cannot comprehend how his empire fell, how humans, a species barely 2 centuries into space travel, defeated technology that took us millennia to develop. What, did you tell him? Susan asked. Kira made the Zarn equivalent of a smile, a slight parting of scaled lips. I told him what you taught me. That technology alone is not strength. That knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. That a species succeeds not by dominating others, but by cooperating with them. He did not understand. Some never will, Laura said. Change is hardest for those who benefited most from the old ways. As evening fell over the Alliance headquarters, Susan made her way to her private quarters. The room was simple, functional, adorned with just a few personal items. A photograph of her family from before the attack, a piece of metal salvaged from the Wright Colony ruins, now fashioned into a sculpture, a gift from the Vexari, a crystal that captured starlight and transformed it into music. She sat at her desk activating her personal log. The screen glowed softly as she began to record. 1 year since the fall of the Zarn Empire. She spoke, her voice soft, reflective. 1 year of building something new, something my parents would have been proud of. We face challenges daily. The road ahead is long, but when I look at what we've accomplished already, I cannot help but feel hope. Captain Laura Miller stood on the bridge of the Earth Alliance ship Defiant, her brown eyes fixed on the massive Zarn dreadnought displayed on the main screen. The alien vessel was 4 times the size of her ship, its hull covered in weapons that could destroy entire planets. Yet right now it sat powerless, its systems compromised by human technology. Status report. Laura asked, her voice calm despite the tension. Her second-in-command, Commander Beth Nelson, responded, the virus is working perfectly. Captain, all their offensive systems are offline, their engines are disabled, their communications limited to our channel only. Laura nodded. This was the moment humanity had prepared for over 3 long years, since the day the Zarn had attacked the Wright Colony, killing thousands of innocent people. Any response from the other Zarn installations, she asked. All teams report similar success, Captain, Beth replied. Operation Justice is proceeding as planned. The virus is spreading through their network. Zarn ships across 6 sectors are being neutralized. Laura allowed herself a small smile. This day had seemed impossible once the Zarn Empire had ruled the stars for millennia. Their technology had been centuries beyond Earth, their warships unstoppable. Then Susan Wright had changed everything. Open a channel to Admiral Torvin, Laura ordered. The communications officer nodded. The face of the Zarn Admiral appeared on screen, her 6 eyes blinking rapidly, her scaled skin flushed with anger, or fear, perhaps both. Have you considered our terms, Admiral? Laura asked. The alien commander hissed. The Zarn Empire does not surrender to lesser species. Your attack is impressive, human, but our fleet is vast. You cannot have disabled all our ships. You might be surprised, Laura replied, keeping her voice level. At this moment, human ships are approaching every major Zarn world and installation. Your entire command network has been compromised. Your technology turned against you. Impossible, the Admiral whispered, but Laura could see the doubt in her eyes. The age of the Zarn Empire is over, Admiral, Laura continued. A new alliance of free worlds begins today. You have a choice. Join us as equals or face extinction. The Zarn Admiral seemed to struggle with this ultimatum. Her eyes darted to someone off-screen. Then she spoke, her voice strained. I wish to see this Susan Wright, the human who created your ships, your weapons. Laura hesitated, then nodded to someone off-camera. A moment later, a new figure stepped into view, a human woman with dark hair and intense eyes. She was young, barely 25, yet her mind had revolutionized human technology. Admiral Torvin. Susan Wright said, her voice steady. I remember you. You commanded the fleet that destroyed my home. The Zarn Admiral stared. You were a child. I was. Susan agreed. Now I am the architect of your defeat. How? The Admiral asked. How did you advance so quickly? Our scientists estimated it would take humans centuries to reach our level. Susan stepped closer to the screen. That was your mistake. You thought technology was your advantage, but your real weakness was your isolation. Your empire hoarded knowledge, kept secrets, even from your own people. When I studied the wreckage of your ships, I found something interesting. Your engineers don't understand how their own technology works. They follow instructions designed by ancestors long dead. The Admiral flinched, confirming Susan's words. Humans are different, Susan continued. We share knowledge. We build on each other's ideas. We collaborate even with other species. The 12 races you enslaved, they helped us. They shared their understanding of your technology. Together, we created something new, something better. Laura watched the Admiral process this information. The concept seemed alien to the Zarn. Their empire was built on conquest and control, not cooperation. The choice is simple, Admiral, Laura said, taking control of the conversation again. Order your forces to stand down. Release your slave worlds, accept membership in the Earth Alliance as equals, or we will be forced to demonstrate exactly how advanced humans have become. You would destroy us, the Admiral asked. No. Laura replied firmly. That is the difference between us, Admiral. When you conquered a species, you enslaved them. When we defeat an enemy, we offer peace. The 12 species you enslaved have joined us willingly. They helped us build these ships, their knowledge combined. With ours, we offer the same opportunity to the Zarn. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. I will surrender my ship, but I cannot speak for the entire Empire. You won't have to, Laura assured her. Your leaders are receiving the same message: surrender or face a force you cannot defeat. Laura signaled to end the transmission. The screen returned to the image of the disabled dreadnought. Prepare a boarding team, she ordered. We need to secure that ship. Beth nodded. All ready. Assembled, Captain, but are you sure this will work? Offering peace to the Zarn. They have been conquerors for 10,000 years. We have to try, Laura said. Otherwise, we become what we hate. As the boarding team prepared, Laura thought about the journey that had brought them here 3 years ago. Humanity had been devastated by the Zarn attack. The colony on Rite the Four had been one of Earth's first attempts to settle beyond their solar system. The attack had come without warning. The Zarn had considered humans too primitive to be a threat, simply a resource to be harvested. They had been wrong. One survivor had changed everything. Susan Wright had returned to Earth with fragments of Zarn technology and a determination that burned like fire. She had worked tirelessly, leading a team of the brightest minds on Earth, collaborating with refugees from other worlds conquered by the Zarn. Together they had made breakthroughs that should have taken centuries. Laura watched as Susan checked, her armor preparing to join the boarding team. The young woman had insisted on being part of this mission. She wanted to face the aliens who had destroyed her home. Are you sure about this? Laura asked. Her Susan nodded. I need to see it with my own eyes, the beginning of the end of the Zarn Empire. Laura understood. There were some things data and reports could not satisfy, some wounds that needed different kinds of closure. Stay safe, she told Susan. We still need that brilliant mind of yours, Susan. Smiled for the first time that day. We all played our part. Captain, your diplomacy, my technology, the courage of our allies. We did this together. That is why we won. Laura nodded. That was the truth. The Zarn could not understand. The power of cooperation, the strength found in unity. The Empire had ruled through fear and division for millennia. It had worked. Now they faced a species that had united not just their own kind but other races as well. The boarding team assembled in the transport bay. Laura gave final instructions. Remember, we want peace. Our goal is to secure the ship, not punish its crew. Show them the difference between their ways and ours. The team acknowledged the orders. The transport activated. In a flash of light they disappeared from the Defiant and materialized on the bridge of the Zarn dreadnought. Laura arrived last. Her eyes immediately found Admiral Torvin. The Zarn commander stood tall, surrounded by her officers. Her 6 eyes watched the humans warily. "Admiral Torvin," Laura said, removing her helmet and extending her hand. "Thank you for making the wise choice. Your crew will be treated with respect. Your people will not be enslaved as you enslaved others. They will be offered membership in the Alliance as equals." The Admiral looked at the offered hand, then at the human woman who had brought down an empire without firing a shot. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she took Laura's hand. "The Zarn never imagined humans would advance so quickly," she admitted. "We never saw you coming." Laura nodded. "That was your first mistake, Admiral. Never underestimate humanity, especially when you harm our children." As Zarn crew members were escorted from the bridge, Laura looked out through the viewport at the stars beyond those. Points of light. Other human ships were securing Zarn vessels. A new chapter in galactic history was beginning, and humanity, despite being newcomers to the stars, was writing it.